it's definitely not old hat fantasy. There's nothing Tolkien-esque about Outland, and that's what I dig about it. It's just kind of a breath of fresh air. And while it looks really funky, right, planets, spinning in the background, the twisting nether, just these crazy zones of, floating continents out in space, it holds together pretty well.
Hellfire Peninsula is the first zone that players will experience when they travel up to Outland through the Dark Portal. Basically, you'll see a landmass just ripped apart from all of the devastation that's taken place on Draenor. And this is Outland. When you walk through that Dark Portal, we are defining Outland in that moment.
Outland was new territory. We would come to meetings, and we're usually expecting some kind of outline from Metzen, and he would come to meetings and say, well, okay, what do you guys want to do here? And I'm like, well, I don't know what's going on with this zone. And Metzen would be like, I have no idea either. We've never done anything here before, so let's just go crazy.
Initially, we call this the crazy times. We have some times where we come up with some interesting far out ideas about how or why these would work, and we basically just iterate upon it to a point where it makes sense in the storyline and we're all happy with it. When we're all happy with it, we just set it in there. It's set in stone at that point. It's in the World of Warcraft lore encyclopedia at that point. But the lore is insanely important. It's immensely important.
We joke about the epic scale of a lot of the things in our game, but sometimes to really get the point across of what you should feel like as a player, the epic nature of this expansion, I think it all sort of is defined by that portal. The orcs in the Dark Horde era, when they first became the Horde and they were planning on, let's go conquer other worlds, right? They built big. They built to last. They built it to be something that stirred the warrior heart. As they're marching off in these giant columns down the path of glory, they were going to go conquer a world, and they wanted the doorway, through which they entered that world to be as grand as possible. The thing that struck us the most was the materials that they would build with. This is more or less their home planet. The orcs sort of invaded Azeroth, and so when they came through the portal back in the day, they didn't bring a lot of their original materials with them. When we were looking and thinking about the Outland orcs, they would have had a lot more materials, a lot more refined tools and things like that to construct their elements with, and so we were able to work in a lot more metals and more interesting architecture, more solid architecture, not so pieced together. It was much more purposeful and military in style. It was very hardcore, just overbearing. They wanted to make sure that their presence was known and felt on that planet, and so when we looked at that, we sort of ran with that theme. It's such an iconic thing. I mean, everybody's seen it for the last 2 years on the start screen, this small dark portal, so we wanted to expand on that and show them what this expansion is all about.
Hellfire supports, an alliance base and a horde base themselves with some pretty cool stories. It definitely, the breadth of the zone allows us to tell stories and create quest lines that are evocative of that Warcraft 2 expansion set and the whole history of the alliance and the horde in this area.
For us to express, we wanted to really play off to the history of the zone. We're doing a lot of new zones here that players might not have heard of and not have seen, but Hellfire is one that kind of hits home because it's really got a lot more lore involved in it.
Lore and quests are extremely important. Every quest we do has to go through Chris Metzen, our creative director. No matter how small, we pass by whatever quest we can, and we try to tie in the lore to almost every quest. We really do want to make that as part of the backbone, the foundation of any quest.
All of those thought processes sort of came together to form Hellfire Citadel, as you see it now.
Hellfire Citadel's got a really unique silhouette, so on the horizon when you're walking up to it, it's in the middle of a canyon. It really stands out.
Hellfire Citadel was based a lot on previous orc architecture. Obviously, the old world orcs are the ones that sort of inhabit this, so we looked a lot at the existing orc architecture that we have in the World of Warcraft. But then we also had to think about exactly what would differentiate Outland orcs from the orcs that inhabit Azeroth?
Hellfire Citadel is our first 5-man dungeon that players will be experiencing in the expansion. It's a winged dungeon, which for anyone that played the original game will remember as Scarlet Monastery.
I think one of the first wings that the artist completed was the military wing, and it looks awesome. It's you'll see regiments of orcs, fell orcs marching around. You'll see armaments and battlements and weapons all stacked up. These guys are ready for battle, and it really comes across in the environment of the dungeon. It's it's a relatively dark section of the dungeon. A lot of heavy red underlighting. You've got these giant burning cauldrons sort of hanging from the ceiling. They're sort of their defensive battlements that maybe they could turn down and open up on people. A lot of heavy chains, and it's just got this super oppressive military kind of theme to it.
One wing is basically revolves around the demons and the warlocks, orcs that live there and created the Citadel. We have another one where all of the orcs are being trained, and that one is we call it the military wing, where they're training them to get ready to go back to battle. And then the third wing is the Ramparts wing, and the Ramparts is basically where you get to fight up on the ledges and the battlements all around the Citadel, but not necessarily inside of it.
A lot of work goes into building a zone like Hellfire Peninsula.
And we always want to top ourselves. We want to make things a lot better than the original Warcraft, World of Warcraft. So we're happy.
And I think that for any player, we're going to very much satisfy that craving for more World of Warcraft, and not only supply more, but supply some new and different stuff that they've never seen before.
Because it's cool. Because Epic is cool.
We wanted to hit you over the head with something you've never seen before.
And it's going to be cool. It's like a whole new game. I can't wait.